Now, according to all the assessments, nowhere else in the world is the poison of extreme poverty felt more sharply or in greater numbers than here in Nigeria. Daily, the drive towards economic growth comes into visible conflict with the survival needs of tens of millions of the dispossessed. And if the latest figures from the World Bank are to be believed, it's set to get worse between now and 2027. Its report suggests that the number of people who live in extreme poverty in Nigeria will keep going up, not down, along with a ballooning population. And that's something that the government will need to confront head on, along with increasing urbanization driven by an almost unquenchable thirst for jobs and modern living. It's a world of galloping scarcity, which, if unchecked, could degenerate into an even greater epidemic of insufficiency, which in turn could lead to a national convulsion. How extraordinary is it that Nigeria used to be, in terms of prospects, one of the most prosperous in Africa and indeed the world. But today, the tree that used to be this country seems to have stopped bearing fruit, and tens of millions of its people are in despair, living with the brutality of extreme poverty. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So we've heard the World Bank saying that poverty will increase to nearly 60% in Nigeria by 2027. What is your assessment of that, and what are the implications of that?
Well, thank you very much for having me once more and giving us this rare opportunity to come and discuss issues that are very, very germane to the country and also to the mandate of our ministry. It is quite, when I read the report, it was really a shocking one, but you must know that this is not the first time Nigeria is receiving predictions. And a lot of prediction came to pass without really materializing as it was predicted. We are all aware when the COVID-19 came, how worse it was predicted for Africa and most especially for Nigeria. But as a government and also as a system, there is a collective drive and collaboration between government, non-governmental organizations, civil society, private sector, to come to a common goal of safeguarding our country. While we've suffered, just like many other parts of the world, in terms of economic recession of 2020, but Nigeria were able to surmount almost all the consequences as far as loss of life is concerned to come stronger.
Yeah, but you mean you were able to surmount it. I mean, you're a minister. What about the people on the streets?
I'm just giving a background of challenges. I'm now coming to current prediction.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're making points that would annoy a lot of ordinary people
I'm not saying,
on the streets.
I'm just trying to, it's not this thing. I'm not saying it doesn't have impact, but I'm saying that predictions were made previously, but Nigeria as a government came up with strategic approach.
Yeah, to be fair.
Now I'm coming now to this.
To be fair, Minister, COVID is not the same thing as poverty.
I'm coming to this. They are all predicted. You understand?
Yeah.
Because you can't, the prediction we are having now, you cannot do away with the consequences of COVID-19. Even the World Bank report made reference to that, the 2020 recession, as a result of COVID-19. So you understand? I'm just trying to use that. What lesson can we derive from that? Now we have had, this is the prediction, that by 2027, the poverty rate will increase by 3.6% in Nigeria. To us as a ministry, this is a wake-up call. As a country, it is a wake-up call.
Well, I'm glad you see it that way. I said, I'm glad you see it that way.
It's a wake-up call, seriously.
Yeah.
What strategic plan are we going to put in our country to ensure a better dignity and prosperity of average Nigeria?
Well, we should be asking you that question.
I'm just saying that that's what I interpret, that wake-up call.
Right.
And currently, as a ministry, and also as a government, a lot is being done like that. For us as a ministry, even prior to the advent of the report, we have predicted that there is going to be a serious challenge ahead. And therefore, we have to sit down and strategize.
Right.
How do we face that challenges that we're anticipating?
Well, I mean,
we had 3 reasons.
Yeah.
I'm coming even before the report. The statement by the American government in terms of reducing with significant percentage of the support given to most of our developing partners who are helping us goes to show that we are going to have issue with support we are getting from them. And what is the way out there? We have to look at inward to see how much can we drive domestically. And then after how much we can drive, how much can we reduce the leakages of the scarce resources that we have as a ministry and also as a government, in both appropriation and whatever that can come to us in terms of blocking leakages and increasing transparency and accountability. Because just the same partner, the same private partners we have used in COVID-19, we have had meeting considering these humanitarian challenges. We have had humanitarian roundtable meeting with them. They are ready to commit their resources on the ground that what happened in the COVID-19 era will not repeat itself as we face these challenges. And what is that? Lack of accountability and transparency to the extent that up till now, there is no report given back to them. You understand? And we are ready to depart from that normal way, abnormal way to ensure that we have a system that is responsive to the yearning and aspiration of Nigerians.
Right.
And,
Okay.
And then on our own part also, with that prediction, we have to look inward. How much can we do? While we are intensifying our effort in reaching the masses in terms of our National Social Register to provide them with rapid response. I was here some time back and I told you as at that time, we have reached only 1.4 million households. As of today, we have reached over 5,500,698 million households in Nigeria in terms of the rapid cash transfer. But then we say, okay, there is always the need to avoid over-dependency on palliatives. And therefore, as a ministry, we have to develop durable solution. That we think if we do that, we can address virtually all the segment and
right. Okay. Well, let me come in here. Yes. I mean, the point really is that you can't sustain these cash transfers.
Yeah, that's why I said we also move towards developing a strong. Yeah. That's why I said we move toward developing strong, durable solutions.
Yeah. Well, one implication is that you are not, in fact, lifting people out of poverty. Instead, more people are falling deeper into poverty. That's what all the statistics suggest, including the NBS, the National Bureau of Statistics.
Agreed. But what was the reason? If you look at the multidimensional poverty index of the 2022 that was done with between the NBS and Oxford University, initially, most concentration was based on monetary poverty. You understand? And if you look at the difference between multinational poverty and monetary poverty, you find that less people are poor when you look at monetary poverty. But when you look at the multidimensional poverty index report, more people are poor. You understand? It means that our approach initially was targeting monetary component only. And now we are doing multi-sectorial approaches, ensure that we address poverty. What are the components there? If you look at the component, there is education that is contributing much to the poverty in Nigeria. And it's also reflecting even in the report of World Bank. And if you look at the address there that Mr. President quickly insists is to ensure that education have the highest budget ever in Nigeria, with a capital project of almost 3.5 trillion. These are all based on...
but when you've devalued the naira to the point that it has been devalued, then the there's no significant change.
You see,
in terms of you could budget more money, but the value of that money is still less.
But you see, what is the emphasis here? is prioritizing education. Gone are the days when education will be in the 7th position. Mr. President pushed education toward 1st position because he knew that really, and he made mention of that when he was signing the F1 Act,
Right.
that single tool to fight poverty is education, and therefore he prioritized education. Now, the difference also in that and what is currently here is giving it the food security, which is also featured prominently in the 8-point agenda of Mr. President. If you put food security, it's one of also what makes this country, I mentioned this. And also when you look at even household itself, in terms of their practices of utilization of energy, the reports have shown that most families use dung, use firewood, use what have you, in terms of their cooking.
Yes.
And Mr. President is debating from that. And everybody, if you are a Nigerian, you are aware that Mr. President is always talking about clean energy in terms of our utilization. And that's why we have a policy even that federal government procurement in terms of vehicle must be CNG compliant. And as of today, I bet to say, I stand here to say that the number of CNG selling points that we have in Abuja has not only doubled, but it also tripled. You understand? So these are all approaches, you understand? Because if the World Bank is not using one index, but the only issue now is, if we maintain this trajectory, and then with strong monitoring and evaluation component that the government instituted, using the office of their special assistant on policy development, things can go in the right, and that's why I've mentioned that this is not the first time Nigeria is having prediction.
Yeah. Okay, well,
but how much did we utilize the information?
Right. We hope that you're right, because we would prefer it if poverty goes down. Nobody likes the idea that poverty is going up.
But let's look at it now.
No, let me just make a point, okay? You're a member of the APC, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a member. Kat Karimpem, elected in different dimensions.
How long has the APC been in power now?
How long? At least 10 years from now.
Very good. Now, the previous government of President Buhari, an APC government, I might add, said its goal was to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. In 2021, he said he had lifted 10.5 million people out of poverty, but a fact check conducted by Premium Times newspaper and other civil society groups, as well as official NBS data, showed that 10 million people actually slipped into rather than came out of poverty. So your administration, I mean the Tinubu administration, was essentially starting from zero in 2023 after the same APC party had been in office for 8 years. Though I might add that it was, as I said, the same APC government. And now the cycle begins again. And you're asking us again to give you our ears and sit there and listen to you while you spew all kinds of things about what you intend to do.
No, I didn't say you should give us their eyes to this thing. But I have to tell you what are the strategies now adopted to make sure that we abate the prediction and we reverse the narratives and change the dynamics.
Is there continuity between the Buhari government and your government?
Government is continuum.
Yeah, I want to know how many people were
continuum. I've just told you
how many people have been systematically. The projection of that APC government was 100 million in 10 years.
That's in 2030.
From 2021
to 2030.
Okay, we're now in 2025, 4 years later. Subsequent to him saying that, a fact check was done and people found that rather than people being lifted out of poverty, people had fallen into poverty. Give us the statistics in the last 2 years that you've been in office.
You have quoted an official figure, of which MBS is a government document. You understand?
Of course.
And therefore, you have quoted an official this. But you see, why do we have monitoring and evaluation component of every program? You can't predict, you can't debate, but you can look back and say, okay, what are the issues that made me not to achieve what I've targeted. Oh my
Yes,
God.
you can do a post-mortem.
You understand?
Certainly.
And I told you, the overdependence on using monetary dimension as against the multidimensional nature of poverty is a major setback. And that's why it was reversed by looking at the multidimensional poverty addition. For instance, we have looked at that, and I was even in Oxford about 6 weeks ago,
Right.
which we have reviewed the report. And what do we find majorly is that most states do not use the result of the study in terms of budgeting and planning for their state. And therefore, there is need for that. And that was part of the recommendation I forwarded to Mr. President when I came back. And Mr. President gladly directed all that should be circularized to call on the attention of all the states to look at the various components. Because that is very, very important. The approach we are saying, well, it's not giving us looking. Look at if you look at the 5 states or 6 states that are the poorest state, of which Sokoto, Bayelsa, Kebbi, Jigawa, Gombe, and Yobe. If you look at them now, while they are the poorest, but if you disintegrate the different components of poverty, you find that each dimension is contributing differently to the level of that state poverty. So if you give it a holistic approach, you are not likely to succeed. For instance, for Bayelsa, housing is a major issue because you need to claim this thing, you need to do this thing. Out of school is not an issue as much as that of Sokoto, which in terms of contribution to poverty. So if you said you are going to address issue of out of school children in Bayelsa to improve their status, you will not get result as when you apply that in Sokoto. So
I see the point you're trying to make, but I don't see the point of it.
No, the point of it is that if you remain focused and the scarce resources you have, and you direct it appropriately, you'll be able to.
I understand that, but my point remains the same.
Yes.
You being APC, you've been in power for 10 years. These mistakes that you're talking about, in other words, we should sit back whilst you make mistakes.
We are not saying,
and then you'll come back and say, oh yeah, we screwed up. We're going to make another attempt.
You are trying to push what my
I'm just saying, because I'm trying to understand how many people you've lifted out of poverty in 10 years.
Your interpretation is quite different. What I'm telling you is that there is a system now we put in place to see how much we can contribute to make things better than
so after 8 years,
you see, in the
you've now put a system in place.
The system is that we have lifted 10 million out of poverty.
There's no evidence to support.
You have mentioned that.
No.
But you see,
I said there was a fact check, and 10 million more people had fallen into poverty.
If you put what moved them back to poverty, and that's what we should be able to address. You understand? And that's also what we're addressing right now.
Okay, let me cut you some slack, Minister. So it doesn't look, before you go away and say that our eyes was leaping down on you from a great height. Because we tried to be as balanced as possible.
Yes, and that's also I'm giving you
and I understand that, and we appreciate that, because we're here to inform people. But let me put it let's look at it from another direction.
Okay.
Do you think the way poverty is measured in Africa in general and Nigeria in particular is right? Do they fail to factor in the informal sector and the peculiarities of African culture when the World Bank, for instance, makes its poverty assessments? Because some have suggested that rather than using the metrics of earnings, where you have people earning less than $2 a day in terms of their declared known income, perhaps the metrics should be spending rather than earning, because so many people who are considered poor based on their earnings receive gifts of money from relatives. I mean, you probably have relatives that come to you for assistance and so on, and you help them with school fees or this or that or whatever. They don't factor that in when they say, this is what I earn per month. And therefore, perhaps the assessment of the way people's income is looked at needs to be done differently. So, you consider people who receive gifts of money from relatives, which they then use to subsidize their income, but which is never declared as earnings. I mean, what do you think of that?
I quite agree that there are some and that's why I told you, globally, one index as at today is not being used to measure poverty. You understand? From the poverty, and that's why we have the multidimensional. Just to correct various factors you are putting in. Expenditure, how much your child go to school, how many children in your family go to school, how many people are living with ability in your family, how much do you spend in terms of your access to this, how close are you to school, to transport yourself. You understand? All these are now put together to contribute to the measurement of the poverty. And that's why it is also given an index of 0 to 1. 0 from where there is no poverty to the 1. This is the that's the total deprivation of multidimensional index. You understand? So that's why I mentioned that if you are using one parameter to measure poverty, you can say you have lifted this over. You understand? But when now you combine the factors, for example, if we are to use how many children we have gone back, we have returned back to school, we will be able to say that we have done. But that's not what we should do. We should use all the components of the multidimensional poverty index.
Collective.
And then the importance of using this is also it will guide your approach. You understand?
Well,
and that's why even right now,
right,
while the ministry develop policy, oversight function, and quality control, fighting poverty is most sectorial in terms of our approach.
Yeah.
Budget and economic planning have their own component, education have their own, labor have their own, health. For instance, now, we all have seen that how much brain drain is affecting us. But the ministry went to develop national policy on health workforce. So that, what is the aim of that? How much they can retain, how much they can give them a job satisfaction, how much they can attract those in diaspora to come back, and see how much we can establish. So this is why I told you that the approach now is multi-dimensional.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not just the World Bank. A report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC, you've probably seen that report, which is one of the world's biggest accounting firms, is that the poverty rate in Nigeria will increase in 2025 with approximately 13 million more people falling below the poverty line. And this is attributed to rising inflation, higher interest rates, the weakening value of the naira, the cost of living crisis. So if you don't bring those things down, it doesn't matter what you're doing, the poverty level is going to keep increasing.
It will keep increasing quite all right. But the issue is, what is the aim of the reforms you are making?
Well, it's not about the aim. It's about the impact of the reform. It's the impact.
You see, the impact will be felt. You see, it's just like I used to mention this, and I've mentioned this before as a medical doctor. What the government, when you have a fracture, you must be able to tolerate pain.
Well, I'm having a lot of pain right now.
I'm coming. The pain for setting this thing and this, but when the function is restored, you will enjoy it perfectly. And Mr. President did not say that reform will not bring pain. But what we as a ministry are going to do, and we are working towards that earnestly, is to see how much buffer can we provide that will absorb the shock.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Minister. You certainly come across as being sincere. Sincerity isn't going to lift people out of poverty, but it is a it is a good sign.
You see, if you are not, you seem
passionate about what you're doing.
You can have a good document.
Yeah.
Why are we here? A lot of insincerity is there. If you have a working document that is not implemented in the best form and the best practice, without proper accountability of transparency, you are not likely to head to anywhere. So the system must change.
Very quickly,
change must be able to favor best practice.
Very quickly, we're almost out of time. What more would you do in addition to what you're already doing to reverse the rising levels of poverty in Nigeria in the wake of this World Bank assessment?
What we can do in the best way is...
In just layperson's language,
yes,
so everybody can understand you.
Yes, is to see how much job can we create in our environment and how much that job is linked to labor market.
And what progress are you making there?
A lot of progress, because we are just going to start our training from the 5th of next month, which will divide Nigeria in 6 geopolitical zones. And we are taking 3 major aspects of life: automobile, agriculture, and renewable energy source. These are areas that we are taking to train our youth, empower them with skill, and link them with the labor market. And it's going to carry much of practical component than just this and how much we can attach them to. And already a lot of private companies have demonstrated their interest in trying to partner with us so that those who are best brain in that will be easily absorbed and taken off. That's one. 2, we are also working hard to ensure that overdependence on palliative is did not become a problem to us in the near future. And therefore, we have to move with our durable solution seriously. And lastly, which is what is causing us trouble now, advocacy to remove job bias among our youth. Somebody with a degree in mechanical engineering but lacks skills cannot go and say, oh, I want to learn with my knowledge now. All I need to do is specialize in scanning, diagnostic scanning. Understand? If we remove that bias and they come forward and they are trained, you see this thing. A lot of what we have now is about job biases.
Right, okay. Minister, I want to thank you very much indeed. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us and for coming across with a good measure of sincerity. We appreciate that. Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu is the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, and we also want to thank you for giving us this rare opportunity.
Sure, thank you.